and Chris does not participate in business activities at all. So he's a limited partner. So we go back to our great example here. As we see on the right, so we're back here at our example. Beginning of year one, they're contributing $100. They purchased a computer. Except this time, at the end of year two, they have made $20 in income, and the computer is still appreciating another $40. So let's take a look at how this works. You split the depreciation for year two. $32 goes to Chris, $8 goes to Connor, and we split the income as well. Now, Chris's capital account is still negative, so that top table does not have substantial economic effect. But what the qualified income offset is going to do is it's going to allocate some of that qualified income that they earned to make Chris's capital accounts 0. So instead of splitting income 50-50, Chris is going to receive a little more. And we see this here on these charts. You see the one on the left fails the alternate test. It's going below that $0 capital accounts balance. But with the qualified income offset, it brings a capital account to 0 figures. So now we're come to the economic equivalency test. This is a little harder to explain. It's used when the other two tests fail. Essentially, it's saying that you can allow these allocations even if you're missing certain things like the deficit restoration obligation, which makes you put more money back into the partnership, or qualified income offset, which requires the partnership to split that income like we just saw. So it allows you to not have those things as long as the same end effect is being reached. So you can do a liquidation calculation, and you will essentially end business operations on that day and make sure everything gets divvied up in accordance. And this would be fleshed out a little more in the partnership agreement. But to better explain this, we have a court case to put a little more solid example around it.
So our court case is Interhotel versus Commissioner, and it's an appeal court case. So where originally the verdict was against Interhotel and said they were going to have to pay more taxes because of the way the IRS saw and comprehended their situation. So what is their situation? So we're going to break it down really simple and not put too many numbers to it. But originally, the partnership had agreed to distribute proceeds and allocations to partners with only positive capital account balances. And so there was no DRO, and they were just said only people with the positive balances will get anything. So some things happened. One guy got a little flaky and sold to another guy, and just life happened, and it made one partner have an extremely negative account balance because he was starting to have to take some of the burden on when all these changes were happening. So once all the changes started to slow down and there was a flat line in partners changing, they came back together and they said, hey, it's not right that this one partner who has stayed through it all has a negative account balance. Let's change our partnership agreement to, right this, because this is not okay that this guy has such a negative account balance and we're still in the positive. So to rectify this, they changed the partnership agreement, and they said that after June 20th of 1991, 100% of the income that they earned would go to the partner with a negative capital account balance. And then once that is back to 0, then they would go back to normal operations of distributions. So the main question here was, is this economically substantial?
So there were 5 main issues that went along with this case. The first issue was losses and profits. Under IRC 704A, the partnership agreement dictates how losses and profits are distributed. But it's important to note that the partner's ability to allocate partnership items is not unrestricted, as in it can change. The second is distributive shares. They must have a substantial economic effect instead of just being for the avoidance of tax. If it does not, then the partner's distributive share of the partnership items will be determined in accordance with the partnership agreement, taking in all facts and circumstances, which we saw in the first slide above, where they needed to make that change. Number 3, the allocation of basis. Tax regulations provide that special allocations of partnership items, and they need to have both economic.
After this video, your life is never going to be the same. So I need you to stop whatever you're.
The economic burden and benefit placed accordingly, which we heard about earlier in the presentation. Number 4, inspection rights. 704B provides that an allocation that does not meet requirements for substantial economic effect will be determined by the partner's interest in the partnership. And lastly, number 5, the main issue of this case was cost basis of the property. So non-recourse debt affects the partner's basis by the purchase amount of the property. And this goes a little bit deeper into the case where there was debt between different partners that were being, with the changes of ownership and different partners and their basis in the property itself. So those were the 5 main issues that we saw in Interhotel versus Commissioner.
But to bring it back to our case about substantial economic substance, they were deciding whether or not that the allocation to this guy's capital account was substantial. And so the two parties, both the petitioner and the respondent, didn't dispute that the special allocations would not, or would, they didn't dispute that they would break the substantial economic substance test. And so they decided that special allocation of 100% that rectifies his negative account does not have substantial economic effect. And in turn, the decision was in favor of the petitioner, aka the taxpayer, because it didn't hurt the economic tax position of the one partner and it didn't diminish that of the other partners.
So that is...
And that is our presentation on economic substantial tests and allocations.
Petunia, we have so many videos now. Every once in a while, I'll come across one of your pictures and be reminded all about the topic again. I love them so much.
Aw, thanks.
Remember the danger guppy? I love the danger guppy.
Which video is that for?
Classification. Remember we were talking about how a scientific name is much more reliable than a common name, especially a made-up common name.
Oh yeah, sometimes I forget what I've drawn.
You forget?
Well, every video has like 200 pictures. If I don't go back and watch the videos, I tend to forget. And I mean, we have like more than 50 videos, so that would take a long time. I guess I'd be more inclined to do that if we had like a TLDR version.
A what?
You know, too long, didn't read, a summary of sorts. Like a refresher, just covering the main points.
A refresher?
Now wait a minute. I didn't mean that we actually need to create a...
But we do. I mean, we've made quite a few videos now in our biology playlist. And if someone was reviewing, we could have this recap video, this stroll through the playlist.
Yeah, but...
Now, this one video would be way longer than our short videos, obviously, but it could be a useful study tool to connect the main pieces of the content together.
Good afternoon and welcome again to this afternoon's presentation, Botanical Science for Beginners. Thanks for joining us early. We've watched you all kind of come in the door here and there, and thank you for taking some time to sit down with us on an afternoon. We can all feel that the weather is getting nicer. No benefit, not fungus.